leave us alone.
When the time comes, he must be trained.
Like you trained his father?
This is the Bunzarelli Show.
All right, I'm Joe. I got Bob with me. The long-awaited, long-anticipated series premiere. Cool thing off the bat that I liked about it was that recap, because I actually had it in my head that I was going to watch the prequels again to get ready for it, and it didn't happen. That recap was really cool. It touched upon, it really compressed like the whole prequel trilogy. Bob, how'd that work out for you, getting that refresher there?
Oh, definitely needed that. And yeah, same thing for me. It actually made me regret not seeing the other three movies again, because I was like, oh yeah, those were pretty good, and you forget like how long ago they were.
Yeah.
And we didn't rewatch those movies like we rewatched the ones from, the 70s.
Yeah.
We watched them when they came out in theaters. We probably rented it from the video store when they still existed.
Yeah.
Afterwards. And then that was it. I'm sure you bought the DVDs. But yeah, the recap was good, and the recap was entertaining too, like in itself, like the music and hearing the lightsabers go nuts. I mean, we've seen some lightsabers,
Yeah.
but you forget like that was the whole thing.
John Williams was actually attached to this. Like, he's actually scoring this, and he was supposed to have retired with the last Star Wars. So he probably strung together. It probably wasn't just music. Like, he probably strung together those clips with his music. You know what I'm saying? Like, somebody cut the clips, but he like recomposed that kind of thing, mixed it. That's what I'm just guessing. Oh, to go back to what you were saying. So I remember when episode 1 came out, I bought that. And that might have been like the first DVD I bought, but it was like that one I was watching a lot, even though, it was like the joke of the three of them in retro, back then at that point. But really, when it first came out, it was like, wow, new Star Wars. That one I watched a lot. The other two, I just watched like to get to the next 1 and 3, but not like the old one where you just constantly saw, our generation, we constantly saw Star Wars like on TV. Remember TNT had them for a while and just be running them all the time.
Yeah, they'd be on TV, and it was also because we were kids.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where we would just always have it on in the background. We were just watching it over. But yeah, like you said, how you touched on the thing of the joke, how it's kind of a joke with the whole kids thing and everything.
Yeah.
I was thinking too, when I'm watching the recap, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'd like to watch it and revisit it too, because, because you remember things differently,
Yeah.
Like that's us putting our spin on it after the fact, and we're comparing it, and we're like, putting it under a microscope, like, okay, why wasn't it as good to us then?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's us like kind of, it's like, okay, well, now that I'm like past all that, I'd like to go back and look at it like, okay, now I could, sort of step back from it and look at it. Let's see I wonder if I'd still think the same things or not.
Well, that's when I had that revisit experience with Kaim, it was like, because Kaim like is, a generation younger than us. So he was 5 or 6, I believe, watching the prequels. That was his start to Star Wars. Yeah, so that was his first experience, which is why, and it kind of is why everybody's kind of excited about it now, because for our generation, the prequels kind of grew on us because of maybe the cartoons. We got to settle on it and everything. But Kaim, that was his first Star Wars, was that stuff. You know what I mean? Like he started episode 1.
That's an interesting point of view.
Oh, interesting dynamic.
Yeah, interesting to see the 2 point of views.
Yeah. And not just to plug it, but anybody listening, we did a revisit on like for each one of the original trilogy, and it was, the prequel trilogy, and it was really cool because me going back looking at them, I was like, you know what? Jar Jar was not that bad. Like a few tweaks, and he could have been a cool character. You know what I'm saying? Just when he did ridiculous, stupid stuff, like getting his tongue stuck in an air conditioning and stuff. But just having, talking silly, that's all over Star Wars. Look at Yoda. Some things just got a little overboard. And lessons were learned. Neither here nor there, but the actual heart of it, like the Obi-Wan Anakin stuff, and especially in that third movie and that fight and that
was great.
The impact of that, because you had like the 3 movies to kind of develop that bond. And that was like the downfall of it and everything. So but the thing was there was always that big gap, because you're like, okay, 30 years later, it's going to become A New Hope, and you're going to see old man Ben Kenobi fight Darth Vader. So to have this little pocket of time, the director, Deborah Chow, she said her starting point was, and it really is a cool idea, like the whole cool point was the one thing they never like told, the biggest, not plot hole like a mistake, but the one like big moment, which we saw was like in episode 3, you see Obi-Wan take his lightsaber and assume he's dead. And you never got that. You never got to see Obi-Wan realize Vader was alive.
When he thinks that Anakin died, yeah. And I never thought about that. Like, oh, there's going to be that moment where he finds out that he didn't. Yeah.
And we got that. No, I mean, not to jump, but that was powerful now because it was like, oh my God, he's realizing it. We know where he is, but you just flash right to Vader. And I think it goes to that almost like the WandaVision thing. Remember when WandaVision was coming out and all of a sudden they like said they're going to release 2 episodes at the same time? Remember how the first 2?
Yeah.
And then it kind of had a better impact. Not that Obi-Wan needed it, but it was kind of cool, the 2 in a row, because it really just like got you locked in. You know, because the first one just he's off towards adventure. The second one's like Vader, just a flash, just a face. And it's like, okay, it's not going to be the last episode of this series. Like, we're going to see him next episode.
Yeah, he's going to be he's part of the show.
Yeah,
this isn't a cameo. And speaking of Vader, and that's another thing. Going back to the recap, is seeing Hayden Christensen with his eyes red.
Yeah,
you know, when he's all heated, because Hayden Christensen was awesome. I liked him a lot.
He was.
You know, he was awesome. I like him in other things.
Yeah.
And he definitely he was aging like with the movies, I guess, because I'm sure those 3 movies took 8 to 10 years or something in between them. But by the end of it, he was getting so good, and then him turning over and turning evil, like he really started getting better and better. So it's going to be cool to see him coming from that. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing him in this.
Yeah, and it's funny because fandom is like that. So the reason why that this show got delayed, that I believe that Obi-Wan got delayed and the whole change happened, was because Star Wars Celebration is happening right now in Anaheim. So that's their like official like MegaCon for just Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the convention for all conventions. Like all the Star Wars actors are there. They unveiled trailers. So they were unveiling the Andor trailer, which we saw. They unveiled like some upcoming cartoons and stuff. So they probably wanted Obi-Wan to come out later just to like not steal the thunder of the, whatever the scheduling was. Point being was there's video out there of Hayden just getting like this unbelievable reception from the fans. And he's just like, I missed you guys too, because like he goes, it just took a lot of patience. It was just like, he said patience is a reward because this generation grew up and now all of a sudden the prequels is getting the respect that it deserves, You know
what it was with the prequels, how I think that it got the reviews like it did was because we were wanting more of episodes 4, 5, and 6. And the prequels weren't that, especially number 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was so much more Disney than it was.
Well, it wasn't Disney then. That was Lucas doing his that was Lucas.
No, but I mean, it still felt like it though. Just like
it felt like campy kitty.
Like campy kitty and super, super high production. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like special CGI. So the look of it changed so much. I think it angered us a little bit to where, so you lash out at these little things.
Yeah.
And then like when you step back and now that we're used to that world, and now that the shows have kind of merged the 2 together so well, and so now that you're past that, and we got our Tatooine fix with all these shows already, now you can look back and you just remember
the story,
the relationships, like you said, the story, the Jedis, Darth Maul, who I thought I was going to see in this episode, but it turned out to be Flea. I thought that was Darth Maul.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, it was so funny. He's like, oh, that's a bad guy. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, that's Flea. Like, oh, no, Flea's gonna... And then when you see Flea, it's like, oh, he's definitely a bad guy. It's Flea. All Flea does is bad guys.
Yeah, it's Flea. You didn't say, oh, that's Needles.
Yeah.
Needles from Back to the Future.
It was so funny. You said a joke to me about Needles. I said, too, I was like, Flea was in something else that was, like, big. And I'm like, Back to the Future. Pop culture-wise, could you imagine being Flea? Like, he gets to brag to the other Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like, yeah, I'm not the lead singer, but were you guys in Back to the Future? and Star Wars. Like I punched
And Star Wars.
I punched Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Well, I want to skip through the Tatooine stuff because the Tatooine stuff was cool. The big stuff about Tatooine, first of all, that giant fish that they were butchering for like a week.
Is that what it was? A fish? I wasn't sure what it was.
It was like a giant. It was like, what's that fish? It was the it looked like a giant space stingray. Okay, now a couple things.
Yeah.
The meat of it looked really good. Like a hybrid of salmon and
Looked like
tuna.
some nice tuna.
Yeah, like it might
nice
have been keto friendly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I think so.
but from it just the cook in me was like, listen, I know that is not up to health code standards. You are butchering that thing. You've been butchering that fish out in the sun for a week. I don't care what kind of outer space happens. Like I am not touching that fish. The Owen stuff was awesome, and it wasn't much more than we saw in the trailer, but it was just enough. It was perfect. You know, the when he like confronts Obi-Wan, because you got to go to that grizzled old man that was like, stay away from that crazy old wizard kind of thing. So you're kind of doing that. You got to be careful because you can't say too much without, you know, the more you say, the more you might ruin for the movies that have been out. You know what I'm saying? So it's just very like careful. But he's like, calls him Ben. He's going by Ben. That's consistent and everything. But Obi-Wan does know that Anakin died. Now, I don't know if he knows that Obi-Wan thinks he killed him or whatever, but, you know, there are those lines in A New Hope, like, you know, he's just like his father. That's what I'm afraid of, and different things like that.
Yeah.
But the fact that he didn't throw Obi-Wan under the bus is actually kind of what it says to me is Obi-Wan, as much as he cares for Luke. He doesn't want Obi-Wan in his head with this Jedi stuff, but I think he does understand the importance of Obi-Wan being there to protect him, even though he's not saying it. That's kind of what I get when he goes, I didn't do it for you. That's what I was gauging from that scene.
I thought more of it spoke to like his character. Like he's like, you know, it's like, okay, this guy's, you know, he's a stand-up guy and it makes sense because he's raised Luke, and it's like Luke, you know, he's raised by this guy, so that's why Luke turned out good like he did. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's more what it was. Like, okay, this guy, even though he doesn't like him, it's just like, you know, I mean, it's a bit of both, but you know, it's like, okay, even though I don't care for this guy, you just watched me yell at him, you know, and everything. It's like, well, you know, it's still the right thing. Yeah,
that could be it as well. And then the Leia stuff, I did not see. I thought if there was going to be any Leia in this show, it might have been like a quick little like glimpse or a, you know, teaser or something, but it was like straight up like Leia. And what that does is that does a lot for A New Hope, because you don't know much about like Leia's side of the story, you know, because if you don't see Luke anymore, there's really no more mystery to solve with Luke as far as Luke's childhood and stuff.
Yeah.
But Leia is an interesting one because her planet gets blown up. So this is the first time we actually see her planet. But also, it's her father, Bail Organa, the stepfather from the prequels, and it's the first time you could actually get, like, an established relationship between those two, even though she's just a kid. But still at least get it in your head that, like, okay, you know, when she says, you served my father during the Clone Wars, help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope, and things like that. And it's also, like, it makes the blowing up of Alderaan more powerful, because now you know Leia's dad is on there. And Leia knows her dad's on there. You know, like Leia's family is on that planet. Instead of it just being this mystery planet you've never seen before.
Oh, how about Jimmy Smith as Bail was really good too.
Yeah, and he's bringing back that character, and he does. And he did an appearance in Rogue One too, because he's part of like the rebellion, and I don't even think that's starting. But I like seeing that relationship. I got a theory about Leia too. I think Leia's got very subtle Force stuff going on. Okay. And
for sure. A little too much to, if you want to stick with the canon or whatever, stick with the storyline.
Yeah.
Because she seems to have more already than she did in episodes 4, 5, and 6. You know what I mean?
Except,
like, we know that she ends up having it somewhere in one of the recent ones.
No, you forget. There were subtle things, and it was just as subtle in the original trilogy. But there was a couple, and it might be more than I remember, but there was, because the stuff she's doing is very simple almost. It's very intuitive kind of stuff. She's not like straight up reading the mind. But when Luke finds out Vader's his father and Luke's dangling from the ship, he calls out to Leia. and Leia could sense him. Do you remember that? It's like, Leia, hear me.
That's right.
And there was another one.
And the thing where she knew. Yeah, I remember that. You reminded me. There was one thing where she knew it was her brother or something.
Yeah, somehow I've always known, and things like that. And also the there was one. When the Death Star blew up, and Han goes, "I'm sure Luke wasn't on there," and she goes, "No, she wasn't." You know what I mean? She's so kind of like,
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and we had a conversation. Me and Kaim were kind of. Well, I've talked to you and Kaim about it with the Green Goblin. It's the same kind of thing. It's like the split personalities. They've shown it was there, so now they're gonna really dig into it. You know what I mean? They're just like, it's been shown, so we get to play in there. So I'm curious.
They opened the door to it.
Yeah, I'm curious if she's gonna confront Vader. I don't think so, but that's always been a thing anyway, because she's face to face with Vader and neither of them could recognize each other. But that might be a little something they explain.
Like kick him in the shins or something.
Yeah. Well, she gets in his face in A New Hope. She goes, Vader, I expected your stench or some of that stuff. Like she's I liked when Obi-Wan just straight up like he goes, she reminded him of Padme. That's what he was getting at.
That was good.
That was cool. And even when she did she had a stand-in to fool her mom. I think that was more like a subtle, like, the show just doing a little, to like, because that was kind of Padme's deal.
Now, one thing with that though is I started to get a feel of the things that we were complaining about with the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm watching, I'm like, oh, is it going to be because once the kid shows up, then they put on the kiddie music and every character has their theme song.
Yeah.
So she's there. They put on her kiddie music, and now it starts taking that tone. And it's like, it's not that it's just because they've done this before.
Yeah.
And I've commented, we've had this conversation about how I think that took the movie down a notch. It's like, I hope this show doesn't make the same mistake. But then again, it is sticking with, because this show, one thing is I was thinking like, okay, so it's the in between the two movies. It's the in between the two movies, but as it started going, I'm like, oh wait, it really was feeling more like a sequel to the first three. You know what I mean? Than a prequel to the next for whatever reason. Which is fine. But it's like, okay, so maybe they're sticking with that, but hopefully they don't go down that same path and they keep it, like, all right, well, have some of that, but keep the adult stuff and keep the theme a little bit more dramatic and everything. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a couple parts to that because, like, the kid Anakin, that was a rough go, but a lot of it was like the dialogue written for him. And the other thing was they shouldn't just put that much focus on just a kid like that. You know what I'm saying? It shouldn't have been like, I don't know. It should have been a little more like focus on Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And, it was a lot of the stuff written for him. Like, are you a space pirate? And, dumb like that. But this one, it works for a couple reasons. First of all, Leia is actually an integral part of the story because it's almost like it's the only thing that got Obi-Wan off the planet. Like, what else would he go for? I assumed when things were coming, he would overhear Vader was alive and go to finish the job. And I thought that's what the show was going to be about. Or when they, when they showed the trailer, it's like they're coming down on Tatooine, even though they just happened to be on Tatooine for a different Jedi. But my whole thing was I had just gauged from the trailers that he was hauling ass out of there just to like lead them out of there, or for some reason. But this actually works better. It was just kind of a coincidence because how could they see him on Tatooine and never think to go back there? You know what I mean? They would never, Vader. It's like, we saw him. They tell Vader, we saw him on Tatooine, but he left, so it's all good, right? Like, yeah, sure. Makes like, nobody would have. So it worked better the way it did. But yeah, Leia's a big deal, and the way they connected everything, like Jimmy Schmidt saying, "Hey, we all made mistakes." This and that, and it was just kind of, it was very brief kind of things. And Obi-Wan, he's in a dark place now, and they said he'd start in a dark place. But the thing going forward is, and I think they want to bridge to like how does he get from Obi-Wan in the prequels to the kind of more laid back Alec Guinness Obi-Wan. And I think Leia might be having to do something with that because kind of, first he's like my droid broken, and he goes good. And then he catches himself being a dick. And then he's like, oh, and starts to chill out. I think maybe just getting out of that hole, butchering fish for 10 years, you know what I'm saying? Just getting out of his own head. And I think this Anakin thing is going to change him too. Know exactly how it's going to make him feel any better, but maybe it's going to give him more of a sense of purpose. or something.
Yeah.
He's going to come out of it a little bit of a better guy.
Yeah, I could see him saving the princess and getting all that,
Yeah.
giving him like a little bit of peace of mind, because at least like, okay, the last big thing he did wasn't, killing his, the guy he's looking after. So instead it's saving the kid.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I could see that bringing him some peace. But yeah, because how is it? We know how it's going to end with Vader in terms of between here and the next thing is Vader's still Vader.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know where that's going to go at all. I have no idea.
Maybe he is gonna drop Leia off, and then he's gonna go back and be like, well, I have to go confront Vader head on to keep him off my tail. You know what I mean? And that's the kind of, and then for some reason when they part ways after that, they're not looking for each other anymore, maybe because Vader does say the line like, you never should have came back, old man. Like something which now we have a new story of that,
Yeah, I think Vader's going after him because the girl, right? The the one, the third sister,
Revan, yeah,
Reva,
yes,
Revan, no, it's Reva.
Yeah,
she which I didn't catch it. I didn't notice until then. I know I'm jumping way ahead.
No,
I didn't notice until her mention of Darth Vader, and I think they did it the way they did it too with the camera. Sort of, you realize it like, oh yeah, she's wearing like a Darth Vader outfit. Like, how did I not catch that? She's wearing like a, you know what I mean? Like it looks like a look-alike costume. But yeah, so they're going after him.
Yeah,
and I think it's more like they're going to be chasing him versus him going after Anakin, because I don't think he wants to kill Anakin. You know what I mean? So maybe that's how it might end with the two of them is Anakin's just going to stop his search for him. Like, okay, well, all is forgiven, but I'm going to go kill everybody else. I'll see you later.
There is another part to it too. He might think he could still redeem Anakin. He might hold out hope because he has his guilt thinking he killed Anakin, and he might go there like back once again. You got to pull from certain lines, like Obi-Wan once thought as you did when Luke was talking to Vader. Just from those lines, maybe he tried again. And maybe it's different this time. But when we were watching the prequels too, not our disappointment, but when we first heard these prequels were coming, I had it in my head in the third movie we were going to see Darth Vader fighting Mace Windu, and I'm talking about Darth Vader in the costume. Like that's what I thought was coming. You know what I mean? And it was really just the end of it was Darth Vader. So now you're going to see Obi-Wan and Darth Vader just straight up lightsaber fight, which is going to be great. It's going to be and whatever dialogue and the more stuff that's said and just kind of like puts them into place for episode 4. You mentioned something about Darth Maul, okay? So Darth Maul gets actually killed by they brought him back in the cartoons, and then in Rebels, he actually had a rematch with Obi-Wan, and it was cool because they actually they had one of their voice actors that did a really good like old Obi-Wan, old Ben. So it was awesome because it was like the first time they did old Ben. But the point being is they killed him in that. But Dave Filoni has his hands in all this cartoon stuff, okay? So here's what I'm getting at. So those Inquisitor guys, so you probably didn't have the same reaction because because you're not into the cartoons and stuff, all right? But those Inquisitor guys, all right, they were established in Rebels. Here's the problem. So Revan kills the Grand Inquisitor. Yeah, we've seen him get killed in the cartoon. It was by somebody else, okay? Which...
Oh, so they're already breaking rules, so anything's possible.
But there's all kinds of stuff on the internet saying, like, could it? Maybe, because it just... Because, Dave Filoni's not just a cartoon guy. Dave Filoni's doing Mandalorian with Jon Favreau, and he's like a creative executive. So is it a glaring mistake somebody made? Or is it that that guy didn't really die? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? But it's the first time.
Well, which took place first, the cartoon or
the cartoon takes place after Obi-Wan, but it doesn't matter because he gets killed a different way in the cartoon. I believe he gets killed in a different way, like a lightsaber fighting somebody else. So it would be a glaring, just straight up F up. You know what I'm saying?
But he could still be alive. You're saying so if he's still alive in the show,
he could still be alive. Yeah, and if they did F up, you could damn bet they're gonna have an after credit scene where they threw him in the back of the tank with the other guy from Boba Fett. Like, oh, even if they're like somebody like Dave Filoni's watched TV, and all of a sudden he's like, "What the?" And he just like picks up his phone and he's just like, "Hey!" But I don't know. Just because you mentioned Darth Maul, I thought of that. I had it in my notes, but as soon as I saw him die, and a lot of us were just like, "What? Wait!" And you could say, "Well, cartoons are cartoons," but Ahsoka came from the cartoons. They've been working very hard to make this consistent. So it's very curious if they made a blatant mistake or it's just there's a plan to it.
I did like the Inquisitors.
Yeah, I like them, and I like their relationship with Reva. I like how they just kept saying, like, "You're impulsive," and they were like slamming her on walls and shit. They were like, like this one's out of control. Oh, I think Reva was one of those kids in the Jedi Temple. Yeah, after the recap, and they start in the Jedi Temple, but it's new scenes being shown and that one Jedi's defending the younglings that are all wearing the helmets, and I think she's the one that goes, "Come on, let's keep moving," which would explain why she has that kind of beef, because Obi-Wan straight up said a lot of the Inquisitors were Jedi to turn to the dark side. Their whole thing is like they're like deputy Sith, like they're not really Sith lords.
Yeah, but Anakin's the one that killed the kids, though.
It's a different group of kids. Those kids that were running around were in a different place, and the kids that Anakin straight up killed. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So whatever she blames.
I see little kid Jedi's running around. I assume Anakin's coming around the corner.
Yeah. It's like a running meme of Anakin and kids. Like there's a one meme where the guy goes, "I could use this VR lightsaber and relive my favorite Star Wars moments." You see him in front of the kids.
She was good. A bit over the top. And it was a bit over the top too. Maybe just not so much over the top. Like the actress was good, but it's like, all right, well, if she's going to be this upset, like give us a clue here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like she was like crazy nuts.
Yeah, it's like very random to just kind of like, because you're just going to go override the Inquisitors for this Obi-Wan obsession, which is like, isn't there anything else the Empire has going on? Which another thing is like, the Emperor kind of would really be pissed off at all this, because he's like, what are you guys doing? We got an Empire to run. Like, enough of this Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like, we got bigger fish to fry. But I don't know. I guess because these guys are specifically there to hunt the remaining Jedi. But I don't know what she wants from Vader. And I could be the whole wrong that she was a Jedi in the temple. But I don't understand like this. Her motivate. Maybe it's something that's going to be made clear. It just seems very, like you said, it's almost.
Oh, it has to be. Yeah, there has to be more to it, because it can't just be that you're going to bring someone out here and make such a point to show how angry they are about something. It's like, okay, well, I thought that is like a terrible thing, but it just seemed to me like, okay, you got to give us a little something here. So
because
you know where she's coming from.
Yeah, because even the Inquisitors are like, what are you doing, a senator's daughter? Are you crazy? Like, you're going to bring a lot of heat. Because this is still like an early point where like they're still kind of playing ball with the Senate. You know what I'm saying? Because even like in A New Hope, they said, oh, the Senate will never stand for this. And they're like, oh, the Emperor's just disbanded the Senate. But that's years later. You know what I mean? So the Senate was a player. But her stance is pretty aggressive. Did you catch Tamora Morrison?
I thought it was him. I wasn't sure.
The clone.
And I was going to ask you about it. Yeah, the clone. I said, is that him? And I'm looking at him. It's crazy. It's just the wig, how different.
Yeah,
and make somebody look.
I think they purposely.
I thought maybe it was the dad. That's what I was like. Okay, is that because the clones thing? I'm still thinking it's the dad. His dad was wasn't his dad a different actor?
No.
Or was it the same guy?
Tamora Morrison played Jango Fett. And then it was the same actor. And then he played all the clones. So the whole idea was Boba was a clone that aged more naturally, that didn't have the speeded up aging process. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
But it was kind of still better, because even like somebody else that's kind of like a little newer and not so steeped in it. Because if all of a sudden, like, if he didn't have the fake beard and stuff, so for us, like, for me, I get it. But for somebody else that just started watching his stuff, you'd be like, why is Boba Fett here? You know what I'm saying? Like, they wouldn't grasp it if they didn't know. So it was kind of, they did it smart enough. Like, let's make them a little unrecognizable. So the people that get it will get it. But the people that don't get it won't be confused. I think that was the purpose.
Yeah, they won't be like, why is Boba Fett a bum?
Yeah. And I still wasn't even sure until like right before we did the show. I pulled it up and I looked right at him, Tamora Morrison, in the IMDb. So yeah, it's definitely him. The look Obi-Wan gave him too, because there's a look of like, a little confusion and a little fear too. Because last time he dealt with clones, they were shooting at him.
Yeah, it's like I've seen 1,000 of you before.
Yeah,
you're all mad.
you're always shooting at me on a dinosaur.
Yeah, or the worst. Oh, speaking of dinosaurs, how about the cameo from Jurassic Park? That was pretty cool. Wasn't it like a T-Rex Jedi or something, or a T-Rex something was shooting at him towards the end.
Oh, like a bounty hunter or something. Yeah.
There's a bounty hunter. It was like a full-on dinosaur.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan sucks at hand-to-hand combat. Like he's like breaking his hand twice.
Yeah,
like he doesn't know how to do anything without a lightsaber.
Yeah, and if you think of it, he was the old man. No, but I'm sure he was throwing punches in the first 3 movies, right? I thought it was more like, okay, he hasn't fought in 10 years, so he's not used to taking a punch or throwing a punch.
I think it was more like that too, because even like when he had to save Leia, he was a little struggling with that force. You know what I mean? He wasn't like, and it almost is better because it makes it like a little more consistent to where like when he gets to like, your powers are weak, old man, they're not doing the backflips and as acrobatic. It kind of shows transition of like he's been out of the game for a while. He's not as sharp.
Yeah, and the force is a muscle. It's a muscle like everything else. It seems like you got to train it in the beginning, so it would make sense that you stop using it for 10 years. And he probably full on stopped using it because he's laying low, so sort of PTSD, which by the way was a cool thing, and I think that we're going to see more of that is the PTSD he's got from his fight with Anakin. You know what I mean? I was like giving him nightmares and everything.
Yeah.
You think of it like, because you forget that scene, and it's like, you know what that was like. It's one thing to see it on the screen. It was like, imagine like he was like in hell, fighting this guy. Basically, he's on this like magma planet or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like that was the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah, and then you're by yourself, and then you're just, you're not. Owen's not talking to you, so you're just sitting by yourself, going to work, and you're just
just
alone with your thoughts. You're just stewing in it.
It's terrible.
I wanted to go. You were talking about training. I remembered something too. I got a feeling. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get a Qui-Gon ghost in this show.
Oh, for sure. The recap. Yeah, it's funny we forgot about that when talking about the recap. That was the biggest part.
The recap. Why was that in the recap?
That's not from anything. That was not in anything else.
It was.
Recap.
No, it was in the movies.
Was it?
Yeah, it was it was like one of the last things. It goes, how to commune with him, I will teach you. Yeah, it was the last little like throwaway second. Oh. The whole idea was to set up that's how Obi-Wan would learn how to
Qui-Gon.
How Obi-Wan would eventually learn to turn himself into a ghost when he goes and helps Luke later. They were kind of just setting that up.
But
it'd be actually cool to see the ghost Qui-Gon talking to Obi-Wan. Just it would just be great. Kind of like I said, tie everything together some more. You know what I mean? So much is.
Oh, they for sure. And that's why I didn't put the two together, because that is right. I do remember it now.
Yeah.
Is they were alluding to that in the movies, but here in the recap and where they put it, that was definitely telling us, no, we're going to show you how to do it. And you know what? They're definitely going to do it. And not just because we get to see Qui-Gon again.
Yeah.
But because having a Jedi talking to a ghost Jedi is just so much like how it went in the original movies that they're going to do it again,
Yeah. And it's not even just for the novelty or how cool it is, but it's also like it's just gonna be cool to see what Qui-Gon has to say. You know what I'm saying? Like about the Vader situation in the Empire and everything. Like his point of view about it.
He's gonna go, my bad, yo.
Like whoops.
That was a bad call. Anakin was a bad choice.
Yeah, the whole pod race thing. I should have just left him. I should have just left him there.
Yeah. It was just the pod races were so cool. I mean, it was so fast. I just couldn't resist. I said, this kid's awesome, man. I bet they're gonna make a video game out of this. It's gonna be great.
The video game. Video game is still the best thing to
come. Video game was the best.
Oh man, this is why I like doing Star Wars ones, because there's such a history to it that we're having this conversation. We're pulling from everything. You know what I mean? There's so much history.
And this isn't a side adventure.
No.
Either. And that's one thing that this trumps the other shows, is that this isn't a side adventure. This is a straight sequel. This is a straight episode 3.5. Like we said with the other, I've said that before, where it was like, oh, this is like a 4.5 or whatever it was, but like, no, this is a straight up 3.5 those characters, you know, and like you said, like it's Leia and Leia's story, I say how like, oh, the whole little kid stuff. It's like, yeah, but Leia, we didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
Luke, they filled in the blanks pretty good
Yeah.
already, and there's like, okay, we could just see Luke. It's awesome to see Luke do some Luke stuff.
Yeah.
But, there's other Jedis. So to see Leia's whole thing, how she comes up and the whole, then you got the whole politics too, because we got Bail in there. So we could see
Yeah. You're
how
getting,
the Empire just turns straight evil. That's going to be a storyline in itself, I'm sure.
yeah, you're getting hints of that. You're getting hints of that with Bale, like, oh, there's some issues you got to talk about. I think you're gonna catch a lot more of that in actual Andor, which is gonna be a lot about like the start of the rebellion. That,
That looked good.
Yeah, that looks really good, and that's of course Cassian Andor from Rogue One, but it's supposed to take place before Rogue One, so it's going to be like the starting of the rebellion. It's got like Mon Mothma, and it's going to touch on everything's touching on these little pockets of time. But this is going to be the same way that Rogue One kind of showed like the whole Death Star thing and put a little more behind it. This is gonna, if this goes well, it is going to go right. But like I'm saying, this is going to give a lot more weight to the Obi-Wan and Vader relationship. So and next episode is going to be sweet because we're in now and we haven't even seen Hayden Darth Vader, and that's got to be coming next episode.
So now we're wanting to see Vader, and we're going to see Vader, but you could have pulled anyone to play Vader. They got Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
So you're going to be seeing him, and we saw him in the tank, so we already have an idea. So we're going to have mutated, burnt, Hayden Christensen. Is he going to be fighting without the mask? Is he going to be costumed up? Well, he was costumed up already.
Yeah. So, interesting thing behind him is like, because he was saying, he actually has an acting coach right now that's like teaching him how to like move like Vader. And he said something. He said like, he felt weird walking around in the costume in episode 3 for that end part. It was a little unnatural. And George Lucas goes,
worked.
George Lucas goes, it's perfect because you just got in his body, which is true. You can see he's walking all awkward. But now he's going to have an acting coach, but it's going to kind of bring it all together because if we know it's him in that costume and he's acting like Vader, but he's still going to be delivering the lines, even though they're going to get James Earl Jones probably to, overdub it. You know what I'm saying? But there might be a moment with his mask off, or there might be a something where Obi-Wan goes, "Is that really you?" and maybe takes his mask off or something like that. That if something along those lines. But it'll help us. It'll help us more cement the connection between Anakin from the prequels and Darth Vader from the sequels. Like this might be an easier way for both of them to transition both those characters. So
for sure.
And we'll definitely see that next week. So I'm excited about it. And Bob, thanks for being here, brother.
Yeah, buddy.